My parents tried to redirect my inheritance to their favored child, but my grandparents had a completely unexpected plan in store. I'm a 30-year-old man from a family with a long, tangled history of favoritism. My younger sister Lisa, who is 27, has always been my parents' clear favorite, particularly my father's. This bias was obvious even when we were kids and only grew worse as we got older. Lisa was the golden child from as far back as I can remember. When I was 6 and she was 3, our parents organized an extravagant birthday celebration for her, complete with a magician, a pony ride, and a candy buffet. For my birthday that same year, I got a store-bought cake and a quiet dinner at home with just family. This set the tone for what would follow. As we grew up, the disparities between us became glaring. Lisa always had the newest gadgets, the trendiest clothes, and most of our parents' attention. One memory stands out from when I was 12. I spent months saving up for a new skateboard. When Lisa saw it, she threw a tantrum about wanting one too. Instead of teaching her about patience or hard work, my parents went out and bought her a better, more expensive skateboard than mine the very next day. The favoritism was also evident at school. Lisa's school plays and events were always attended by our parents, but mine were mostly ignored. I remember starring in my school's spring musical when I was in 5th grade. I practiced relentlessly for weeks and was thrilled about the performance. On the night of the show, my parents showed up halfway through because they were busy comforting Lisa, who claimed she had a headache. Later, Lisa was perfectly fine. My parents had just lost track of time while watching cartoons with her. Academically, my efforts were hardly acknowledged. I was a straight-A student, won the regional spelling bee, and even placed first in a statewide science competition during middle school. My parents barely noticed. When Lisa, on the other hand, got a B in her toughest subject, they threw her a party and bought her a tablet to encourage her to keep improving. High school was a particularly challenging period. I worked tirelessly to earn their approval, maintaining a perfect grade point average, leading the debate team, and becoming editor of the school paper. Meanwhile, Lisa scraped by with a C average and spent most of her time lounging around with friends. When I was chosen as one of only 3 students from my high school to attend an elite summer program at Princeton, I was ecstatic. At dinner, I announced the news, only to have my father shrug and pivot the conversation to Lisa's upcoming gymnastics meet. When the program's start date conflicted with one of Lisa's performances, my parents told me they wouldn't be able to drop me off at the airport. A friend's family ended up taking me. Applying to colleges brought a fresh wave of disappointment. After months of perfecting essays, acing standardized tests, and juggling extracurriculars, I was accepted into several prestigious universities with a substantial scholarship to my top choice. When I told my parents, their reaction was lukewarm at best. My father warned me not to let it get to my head, while my mother offhandedly remarked, "Just don't forget about us when you're famous." When Lisa barely graduated high school and decided against college, my parents called her brave for defying societal expectations. They even bought her a used car as a graduation gift, something I never received. Years of enduring this blatant favoritism took a toll on my mental health. Throughout my late teens and early 20s, I struggled with anxiety and depression. Therapy in college helped me realize that my parents' behavior wasn't a reflection of my worth. It took years of work to rebuild my self-esteem and learn to validate myself without their approval. Despite the lack of support, I carved out a good life for myself. By 29, I'd graduated college with honors, secured a solid position in finance, and bought my first home. While my parents aren't particularly proud of me, I've learned to be proud of myself. And this is where the latest drama begins. My grandfather, on my father's side, passed away recently. A self-made businessman, he left behind a considerable estate. In his will, he divided his assets equally among all his grandchildren, which included me, Lisa, and our 3 cousins, as well as his children, my father and his siblings. My inheritance amounted to nearly $700,000, a life-changing sum that could help me pay off student loans, invest in my future, or start a business. I was elated about the opportunities this money could provide. But when the will was read, my parents were visibly upset. Shortly after, they pulled me aside to say they thought it was unfair that I received the same amount as Lisa. Lisa, who still lives in their basement and works a few hours a week at a gift shop, claimed she needed the money more because she was struggling. Stunned, I tried to stay composed as I explained that this was Grandpa's decision, not mine. My parents insisted it was my moral obligation to give Lisa my share. When I refused, they became angry, accusing me of being selfish and ungrateful. My father dredged up every instance he'd ever supported me financially, paying for braces, covering basic school supplies, letting me live at home during breaks. Conveniently, he forgot about the car they bought Lisa, the countless shopping trips, and the fact they continued to subsidize her lifestyle well into adulthood. The situation quickly spiraled out of control. As the executor of the will, my father decided to handle us personally. Along with distributing her own inheritance, he announced he would reinterpret Grandpa's intentions and transfer my entire share to Lisa. He claimed that if Grandpa had been aware of our unique situation, this is what he would have wanted. I was devastated. This wasn't just blatantly unlawful. It was also a painful reminder of how little my parents valued me. I tried reasoning with them, pointing out that Grandpa had always treated all his grandchildren equally and was fully aware of our family dynamics. My mother, however, accused me of disrespecting Grandpa's memory by suggesting he might have intended anything other than what my father was proposing. I recalled how Grandpa had always encouraged my academic and career pursuits, but my parents dismissed these as misunderstandings. They argued that Grandpa had privately expressed concern for Lisa's future and wanted to ensure she was taken care of. When I asked why Grandpa hadn't written his will that way if that were true, they had no answer. Lisa, meanwhile, remained silent. She avoided taking a stance, merely saying, "Mom and Dad know best." When I tried talking to her privately, it became clear she wouldn't support me either. Feeling betrayed and isolated, I turned to Grandpa's widow, my paternal grandmother, for advice. When I explained the situation, she was furious. She assured me my parents had no authority to alter the will and that this was absolutely not what Grandpa had intended. Grandma sent me documents that clarified everything. It turned out that years earlier, my parents had tried to convince Grandpa to leave everything to Lisa in his will. Grandpa had firmly refused, believing that all his grandchildren deserved equal treatment. He had even included a clause stating that any attempt to contest the will's equal distribution would result in forfeiture of the challenger's share. Armed with this information, I confronted my parents. Grandma's revelation of their earlier scheme shocked them. My father tried to justify his actions by claiming he was just looking out for Lisa's future, but the guilt on his face was evident. Grandma wasted no time taking action. She contacted the will's co-executors and the family attorney, as well as my father's siblings. My uncles and aunts were outraged at what my father was attempting and joined forces with Grandma to ensure the will was executed exactly as written. My parents, though clearly unhappy with me, had no choice but to back down. They accused me of airing family business and turning everyone against them. My mother tearfully accused me of dividing the family, while my father threatened to disinherit me entirely. He went as far as to say I wouldn't be welcome in their home if I accepted the inheritance. In a particularly cruel jab, my mother claimed that by keeping the money, I was proving I didn't truly love them and only cared about profiting from Grandpa's passing. This conflict has divided the extended family. Some of my cousins support me, understanding the years of favoritism I've endured and applauding my decision to stand up for myself. Others believe I should have given in for the sake of family unity, arguing that peace is more important than money. While my uncles and aunts have been firmly on my side, the tension has strained their relationship with my parents as well. Lisa is caught in the middle of all this. She confided in me that while she feels guilty and never asked for this, she can't bring herself to oppose our parents. Having been conditioned her entire life to rely on them and seek their approval, I can't entirely blame her. Still, part of me wishes she would stand by me just this once. This ordeal has resurfaced years of hurt and resentment. I find myself reliving moments from my childhood, birthdays overshadowed, school events skipped, achievements ignored, all in favor of Lisa. This battle over the inheritance feels like the culmination of a lifetime of being overlooked and undervalued. Despite the family rift, I'm determined to claim my inheritance as Grandpa intended. My parents have barely spoken to me since, and family gatherings have become unbearably tense. For the first time, I skipped our monthly family dinner because I couldn't handle the cold shoulders and accusatory stares. Amid the chaos, though, I feel a small sense of empowerment. For the first time, I'm standing up to my parents and asserting my worth. It's both painful and liberating. While I believe I'm in the right, the emotional toll has been immense. I've started experiencing anxiety attacks again, something I haven't dealt with since college. To cope with the stress, I'm considering going back to therapy. Did I do the right thing by refusing to comply with my parents' expectations? Should I have just handed the money to Lisa for the sake of family harmony? I'm tired of being the scapegoat, but the idea of losing my family completely terrifies me. Any advice or perspectives would be greatly appreciated. Update. It's been 6 months since my initial post, and a lot has happened. I want to thank everyone who offered their support and advice. It gave me the strength to endure this incredibly challenging time. First, the legal side of things. As many of you suggested, I consulted my own lawyer. He confirmed that I had every legal right to my inheritance and that what my father attempted was unquestionably illegal. My lawyer helped document everything and prepared to take legal action if needed. Thankfully, it never came to that. Alongside my father's siblings, my grandmother and her legal team managed to settle matters without involving the courts. I received my full inheritance, and the will was executed exactly as my grandfather intended. Due to his attempt to manipulate the will, my father was removed as an executor. The process took several weeks and was incredibly stressful. My parents threatened legal action, which led to tense meetings and heated phone calls, but the law was clear, and they had no choice but to step back. However, the fallout within the family has been profound and is still ongoing. At first, my parents dug their heels in, accusing me of being greedy and uncaring toward my sister. They tried to rally other family members against me, spreading false claims that I had somehow coerced my grandfather into favoring me. Fortunately, most relatives saw through their manipulative tactics. About 1 month after the will was settled, an especially tense incident occurred during a family gathering. My aunt was hosting, and my parents showed up uninvited. They created a scene, accusing me of stealing from Amy and manipulating our grandmother. My father ranted about how I had ruined cherished family memories, and my mother even threw an old photo album at my feet. It was humiliating and heartbreaking. Several family members intervened to calm things down and eventually persuaded my parents to leave. Through it all, my grandmother has been my greatest ally. She shared stories of how proud my grandfather was of my achievements and revealed that he had kept a scrapbook documenting my milestones, academic awards, acceptance letters, and even the program from my university play, one my parents missed. This revelation was both touching and bittersweet. My grandmother also took it upon herself to set the record straight with the extended family. She organized a gathering, without my parents, to recount their long-standing favoritism, bringing up incidents I had long forgotten or never known about. Finally, having someone validate my experiences was cathartic, but also reopened old wounds. To my surprise, Amy eventually found her voice. After some soul-searching and heartfelt conversations with our grandmother, she apologized for not standing up for me sooner. She admitted that while she recognized our parents' favoritism was unfair, she had been too scared to confront it. Amy and I talked deeply about our upbringing and its effects on us both. She confessed that being the golden child wasn't as perfect as it seemed. Our parents' over-involvement had left her unprepared for independence and burdened by unrealistic expectations. These conversations marked a turning point in our relationship, allowing us to rebuild the sibling bond that our parents' favoritism had fractured. Amy surprised everyone by announcing that she planned to use her inheritance to pay for college. She said my decision to stand up for myself had inspired her to take control of her life. Starting with a local community college, she aims to transfer to a 4-year university. Our parents were visibly shocked, perhaps realizing their overprotection hadn't done her any favors. Their response to all this has been mixed. At first, they lashed out, accusing both of us of betrayal. They even tried to guilt Amy into abandoning her plans by claiming she needed to help the family after I had turned her against them. When that didn't work, they shifted tactics. My mother, after many conversations with my grandmother, began acknowledging the harm their favoritism had caused. She started therapy and reached out to apologize, admitting her mistakes and asking for a chance to rebuild our relationship. While I'm cautiously optimistic, I'm also maintaining firm boundaries. Unfortunately, my father has been less willing to change. Still angry, he sees himself as the victim in all of this. He's been cold toward Amy since she enrolled in college and barely speaks to me. He's even tried manipulating us with threats, such as selling our childhood home if we don't come to our senses. Despite this, Amy and I remain united, though his behavior continues to hurt. The dynamics within the extended family have shifted significantly. I've grown closer to my aunts, uncles, and cousins, many of whom have shared their own struggles with my father's difficult behavior over the years. I've also built deeper connections with cousins who supported me through this ordeal. We've even started a monthly cousins' dinner, free from the older generation's drama. As for me, I've been making prudent use of my inheritance. Paying off my student loans has given me incredible financial freedom. With the help of a financial advisor, I've created a diversified investment portfolio to secure my future. I've also reserved part of my inheritance to potentially start my own business in the future. One idea I'm exploring is opening a community center focused on affordable mental health care and financial literacy programs. However, the most significant use of the money so far has been investing in therapy for myself and offering to support Amy in doing the same. Both of us are learning how to establish healthy boundaries with our parents and process the lingering wounds of our childhood. While it's a long journey, I feel I'm finally making progress in addressing the emotional neglect and favoritism that shaped so much of my early life. This whole ordeal, while painful, has brought unexpected growth and positive changes to my life. Through this process, I've learned so much about standing up for myself and creating boundaries. Although I know I made the right choice, it hasn't been easy, and there are still tough days. Despite that, I'm proud of myself for resisting the pressure and guilt that tried to pull me back into an unhealthy dynamic. Interestingly, this experience has also shifted my career focus. The family conflict and therapy have revealed a passion for helping others who have dealt with similar family struggles. I'm now considering going back to school to specialize in counseling adult children of emotionally immature parents and pursuing a career as a family therapist. In the meantime, I've started volunteering at a local youth center, supporting teens from challenging family backgrounds. Being able to provide the kind of encouragement I wish I'd had growing up is incredibly fulfilling. Amy and I have continued to strengthen our bond, rebuilding our sibling relationship on our own terms. We've started having monthly sibling days, spending time together without our parents' influence. Last month we went hiking and had a picnic. It was the most relaxed and connected we've felt since childhood. Our relationship with our parents remains complicated. My mom has started attending therapy, and she's gradually coming to terms with the impact of her favoritism. We've had a few honest, albeit difficult, conversations about the past and how to move forward. Progress is slow but visible. My dad, however, has been resistant to any change. He insists he did nothing wrong and believes Amy and I should be grateful for what he's done. He refuses to attend family gatherings if I'm there, and while this hurts, I'm learning to let go of the need to change his perspective or control his reactions. Through it all, my grandmother's been an unwavering source of support. She frequently shares stories of my grandfather's pride in me and reminds both Amy and me of the importance of fairness and self-respect. Her wisdom and compassion have been invaluable in navigating this complex situation. This journey has taught me what family truly means. I've come to realize that sometimes the family you choose, through friends and supportive relatives, can offer more love and encouragement than the one you're born into. I've grown closer to the relatives who stood by me and have built a solid network of friends who've been a lifeline during this process. Setting boundaries and prioritizing self-care have also become vital. I'm learning to say no to situations that harm my mental health, and I no longer feel guilty about putting my well-being first. For years, I was so focused on earning my parents' approval that I neglected my own interests and growth. To anyone in a similar situation, my advice is this: don't let anyone make you feel guilty for claiming what's rightfully yours. It's okay to stand up for yourself, even if it causes conflict. You deserve fair treatment and respect. Remember, it's never too late to create the life you deserve. Seek therapy if you need it, surround yourself with supportive people, and don't be afraid to set boundaries. Your worth isn't defined by how your family treats you, but by who you are as a person. Thank you to everyone who offered advice and support during such a challenging time. It meant more to me than I can express. While the journey hasn't been easy, I'm optimistic about the future and feel more confident in myself than I have in years. I'm looking forward to this new chapter in my life and am determined to break the cycle of favoritism, building healthier relationships for myself and my future family. Thank you for reading my story. If you haven't already, please subscribe and click the notification bell for more real-life stories like this one. Update: after I finally stood my ground and claimed my inheritance, things seemed to calm down within the family. My mom continued therapy, trying to work on her perspective, although progress was slow. My dad, however, became more distant, avoiding any contact. I began to rebuild my life, planning to start my own business and help others by opening an educational center. Amy and I had grown closer, mending our relationship in ways we hadn't thought possible. But a year later, something completely unexpected happened. My mom called me one afternoon, sounding shaken, and revealed something that completely stunned me. It turned out that my dad had been hiding another will, an earlier one that was written several years before the one we had fought over. This new will contained provisions that affected not only the inheritance, but also the conditions under which he distributed everything. It stated that if any of his children challenged his wishes, they would lose everything. My dad had never mentioned this, and I had no idea it existed. The revelation shook me to my core. My dad had secretly been working behind the scenes to change the will in his favor. He had manipulated the situation, hoping to avoid any conflict by altering what my grandfather had originally planned. My mom, feeling betrayed and horrified by this discovery, told me that she had no idea he had been hiding such a crucial part of the family's legacy. She expressed how much this had hurt her, as she had always believed my dad to be the one to keep things fair and protect the family. But now she wasn't so sure. I didn't know what to think. Part of me was angry at my dad for his dishonesty and manipulation, but another part of me felt deeply saddened. We had been so focused on the inheritance that we hadn't realized the extent of the damage caused by my father's actions. It wasn't just about the money. It was about trust, betrayal, and the disillusionment that came with discovering that the person you've always depended on has been hiding things from you. In the midst of this turmoil, Amy surprised me. She came to me and said that after hearing about the hidden will, she wanted to take a stand too. Amy, who had always been passive in the family dynamic, suddenly found the courage to speak up. She admitted that she had felt controlled and manipulated by our parents for years, especially when it came to her education and career choices. She now realized how much my dad's favoritism had stunted her own personal growth. Together we confronted my mom and told her about our plan to seek legal counsel regarding the hidden will. The situation had escalated beyond the inheritance dispute. It had become a matter of family integrity, trust, and the emotional toll of years of favoritism and manipulation. To our surprise, my mom agreed to support us. She said that she wanted to help us fight for what was right, even if it meant standing against my dad. The next few months were intense. We took legal action, and after a lengthy investigation, we discovered that the second will had been forged by my dad in an attempt to control everything. The courts invalidated that version, and the original will was upheld. My dad's actions had not only alienated me, but also hurt Amy, who finally found her voice. This whole ordeal has left me emotionally exhausted, but also empowered. It's been a wake-up call for all of us. My relationship with Amy is stronger than ever, and I feel like I'm finally stepping into the life I've always deserved. My parents are still struggling with their actions. While my mom has made an effort to reconcile, my dad remains unrepentant, and our relationship with him is fractured beyond repair. I'm now more committed than ever to building a healthy, supportive future, free from the toxic favoritism of the past. It's been a long journey, but I believe I'm on the right path.